remember her presenting before on African matters. We're already confused because, Deirdre, we need to know what the phages of Africa are. Although Deirdre will be looking at a Kohler map. She's a pediatrician specializing in neurodevelopment. She's a collector mainly of miniature maps of Africa, but I do note some mission creep in recent times. This is because, not the mission creep, I think that's because she likes maps, but Africa is because Deirdre spent her childhood in Africa. Deirdre, over to you.
Thank you, Mike. So this is a small map of Africa that I've managed to get hold of recently. It's about 15 by 18 centimeters. It's written in Latin and blank on the verso. I bought it with a date of 1799, but I think it's more likely to be from the mid 18th century. The map itself is fairly typical. It shows quite a lot of detail in the northern part of Africa, but very little in the southern part. And the southern part is actually smaller than on later maps as well. It shows the two Telemic maps, lakes, on the left, Zaire and Zemba, and on the right, Lake Zaflan. The interesting thing about this, however, is on this map, they're called Nili Palace, which translates as Nile Swamp. And then the Mountains of the Moon lie just to the south of those two lakes. Now, the really interesting thing about this map is the vignette. Vignettes on small maps are quite uncommon, and this one appeared to be telling a story, which I'll come to later. You can have the next slide. A bit of searching, and I managed to find 2 copies of the map, both in atlases. One is held by the Bavarian State Library, and the other I found on Google Play Books. They've both dated the atlas to 1750, and it consists of a cover, a title page, which is shown here, and then 11 maps, and the African one is the 11th map. The map was based on the work of Johann David Kohler and produced by Adam Gottlieb Schneider and Wiegel Publishers. Kohler died in 1755, which is part of the reason I think it's probably a mid-century map rather than a later one. He was a German historian whose academic focus was on Roman coins, ancient weapons, and genealogy. And he was the professor of logic and history at the universities of Altdorf and later Göttingen, and also served briefly as the university librarian at Altdorf. The publishers actually closed in 1805, and they employed Conrad Mannert as an engraver and published only a few maps, all of which are quite rare. You'll notice on this map, if you can see right at the very bottom, there's a little date. Sorry, not on the of 1825, and then just to the right there's a name, a nobling, and there's also a similar thing on the other atlas that I found on Google Play. It confused me a bit, but what we think probably happened was that the atlases were produced for the university, and then when the university closed in 1805, they were probably sold on, and that's why you have a later date on them and the names of people. If we can go to the vignette. So what this shows is the Phoenician queen Dido's founding of Carthage in an area of what is now Tunis. According to the story, Dido had fled from Lebanon, landed on the coast of Africa, and asked the local king, King Haribus, for as much land as an ox hide could cover. That agreed, she then had the hide cut into strips and laid them around a piece of land. So she actually acquired quite a large piece of land. There have been various tales of oxhide measures being used by European colonialists in parts of Asia, Africa, and America in order to trick the indigenous people into agreeing to hand over larger tracts of land than anticipated from the original request. and there's also some stories of it being used in Britain. It is possible, however, that hide actually comes from the word hid, which is a unit of land large enough to support one family. If I can move to the fourth slide, please. So why the phages of Africa? Phage is the Greek word for meaning to eat. And certainly in medicine, we have lots of phages. So hyperphagia means eating too little, hyperphagia, eating too much. Trichilophagia is a favorite of kids, eating hair. And on this map, if you look at the left-hand bottom, sort of southern part of Africa, you find the anthropophages, which basically means man-eaters. So they believe that cannibals lived in this area. On the map, or the part of the map on the right, in the middle of the sort of bluey area is written Rhizophagi. That's it, just below Babylonia. That means eating roots. And then you have just below the V in the pink area, strutophages, which are people who eat ostriches. And then to the left of that, just near the little lake, is elephantophages, who are people who eat elephants. If I can move to the, and I guess you could say that Queen Dido probably ate earth, so she's probably a geophage. It also shows quite a lot of other groups of people as well. So on the left is written, in the image on the left is written Agisba Regio, and this was an unidentified country that Ptolemy mentioned based on the writing of Marinus of Tyre. He wrote that in the early 1st century, the king of the Garamantes, which I'll come to, claimed that the inhabitants of this area were his subjects. It was said to be a 4-month journey south of Fezzan in Libya, and to have large animals such as elephants, rhinos, and tall mountains. Around about this time, a trader called Julius Maternus travelled to this region and came back with 2 rhino horns. Modern historians think that this area probably preceded the Canaan Empire, located on the shores of Lake Chad, so quite some distance from what is now southern Africa. On the right, you can see the troglodytes. If you look at sort of the area along the Red Sea, in the blue area, it's written diagonally, and they were cave dwellers, pastoral people living on meat and a mixture of milk and blood from their animals, which is very much similar to some of the tribes in Kenya. They were said to have been hunted and enslaved by the Garamantes. So again, if you look at the little lake upper left, the Garamantes are below that, below the Libyan desert.
I got too interested. You've only got a minute left, Deirdre.
All right, so okay, I'll speed up. These were actually a very interesting people. They were very sophisticated. They had their own chariots, and they've left behind artifacts and tombs. They actually survived in this area because they were able to mine underground water and channel it to where they were needed. And then very last is the Blemmies, near the bottom middle of the image, and they were a race of people who didn't have heads but had their faces located on their chests.
Say more.
Sorry?
I want to see a picture of your assistants.
Oh, my assistants. Yes, that's the next slide.
Yeah. Deirdre told me that she worked with some very highly reputable associates. And here they are.
Who are being very good and quiet at the moment, much to my surprise.
Well, thank you very much for that, Deirdre. I was thinking about the founding of Rome, where the hide trick got played, and also the Anglo-Saxon invasion of Kent, where Hengist and Horsa did it. So we're told. So it's a common con game. this hide thing. Again, questions. I don't see people giving us questions, but again, I understand they're hearing a great deal of interesting information all at once. But please use these presenters while you have them, and do ask before the end if you have something on your mind. But I just saw a very important one just come zooming through. So we're going to have a break now. We're going to reconvene in about 10 minutes at 5:02, 7 UK time. So let's just assume 10 minutes from now. We don't have to. Thank you so much, by the way, all four of you, for your diligence on the time, because it means that we can afford to have a proper 10-minute break now. So stretch your legs, comfort break, 10 minutes.